August 14, 1945, 0930 hours, near Yokosuka Naval Base, Japan. Obersergeant Klaus Richter of the Luftwaffe Liaison Unit, attached to Japanese forces, watched through his binoculars as another formation of American aircraft appeared over Tokyo Bay. After 5 years of war, the German observer had seen thousands of bombing missions. But what happened next would become the most humiliating moment he would witness in his entire military career. From the lead aircraft, a TBM Avenger torpedo bomber from USS Saginaw Bay, something fell. Not the typical cylindrical bombs or sleek torpedoes, something white, porcelain, unmistakably civilian, a toilet. A complete functional American bathroom toilet, painted with a message in large black letters, from the captain and crew of the USS Saginaw Bay to the officers and gentlemen of the Japanese fleet. The toilet tumbled through the air, traced a ballistic arc, and struck the water of Tokyo Bay approximately 500 yards from a Japanese destroyer. It shattered on impact, sending up a plume of water and ceramic fragments. Richter lowered his binoculars. His hands trembled. Not from fear of bombs or torpedoes. Those were legitimate weapons of war. This was something else entirely. This was contempt. This was the enemy demonstrating such overwhelming superiority that they could waste resources, time, and effort to drop bathroom fixtures as gestures of mockery. What Richter didn't know, what German high command had failed to grasp despite 5 years of evidence, was that this toilet represented more than a joke. It symbolized the industrial and logistical superiority that had doomed both Germany and Japan. An enemy who could manufacture, transport, and deliver bathroom fixtures across 5,000 miles of ocean as pranks possessed resources beyond German comprehension. The story of the toilet bomb didn't begin in August 1945. It began 3 years earlier in the fetid jungles of Guadalcanal, in the frozen skies over Germany, and in the minds of Allied airmen who discovered that humor could be as powerful a weapon as high explosives. This is the story of how a bathroom fixture became a symbol of Allied victory and Axis humiliation. The birth of psychological warfare. The concept of dropping unusual objects from aircraft for psychological effect predates World War II. During World War I, German pilots dropped propaganda leaflets and, occasionally, unusual items to demoralize enemies. But the systematic use of humorous or absurd payloads as psychological weapons began with Allied forces in World War II. The tradition started small. British pilots in 1941 began writing messages on bombs before dropping them on German targets. Typical messages included, "To Adolf with love," or "Return to sender." These personalized weapons served dual purposes. They maintained crew morale during dangerous missions and sent psychological messages to enemies that British flyers retained fighting spirit despite the Blitz. American forces adopted and expanded this practice. By 1942, American bomb crews were regularly decorating their ordnance with messages, images, and dedications. The practice became so common that military photographers documented it as standard pre-mission ritual. But some airmen wanted to take psychological warfare further. They wanted to send messages that transcended simple insults. They wanted to demonstrate superiority so complete that it bordered on contempt. Commander William Ellis of USS Saginaw Bay conceived the toilet bomb idea in July 1945. His escort carrier had been operating in the Pacific for 2 years, supporting invasions from the Philippines to Okinawa. His squadrons had flown thousands of sorties, dropped countless tons of ordnance, and lost dozens of aircraft and crew. By summer 1945, the war's outcome was inevitable. Germany had surrendered in May. Japan was being systematically destroyed by American naval and air power. But Japanese forces continued fighting with fanatical determination. American casualties mounted daily. Ellis wanted to send a message that would penetrate Japanese military consciousness, not through destruction that was happening daily. through demonstration of such overwhelming superiority that continued resistance was revealed as futile. The escort carrier USS Saginaw Bay, CVE-82, had just received replacement bathroom fixtures as part of routine maintenance. The old toilet, a standard Navy head unit weighing approximately 60 pounds, was scheduled for disposal. Ellis saw opportunity. According to his later account, documented in Naval Aviation Museum archives, Ellis gathered his squadron commanders on July 28, 1945. "Gentlemen," he announced, "we're going to drop a toilet on Japan." The reaction was initially skeptical. Squadron commanders questioned the legality, the safety, and the purpose. Ellis explained his reasoning. The Japanese military operates on concepts of honor and dignity. What message does it send when we can afford to drop bathroom fixtures on them? It says we have so many resources, such complete air superiority, that we can waste effort on jokes. The concept appealed to air crews who had been flying dangerous missions for years. If they were going to risk their lives over hostile territory, doing so while delivering a massive insult to the enemy provided psychological satisfaction beyond simple bomb delivery. But executing the plan required overcoming technical challenges. A standard naval toilet wasn't designed for aerial delivery. It needed modifications to fall predictably, to survive handling, and to mount on standard bomb racks. Aviation Ordnance Man James Cook took responsibility for engineering the project. Cook had been maintaining and loading bombs for 3 years. He understood ballistics, aerodynamics, and structural requirements. Over 5 days in early August, he transformed a bathroom fixture into an aerial weapon. The modifications were surprisingly simple. Cook attached a standard bomb fin assembly to the toilet's base, providing aerodynamic stability. He reinforced the porcelain with steel straps to survive the handling process. He painted the entire assembly white with a large black message across the bowl and tank. The payload weighed 73 pounds fully assembled, well within the TBM Avenger's capacity. Cook mounted it on the standard centerline bomb rack, using modified hangars. Testing confirmed it would release cleanly without affecting aircraft stability. The final step was official approval. Ellis submitted the mission as test of non-standard ordnance delivery to avoid explicitly requesting permission to drop a toilet on Japan. The request was approved without detailed review. By August 13, 1945, the toilet bomb was ready for combat deployment. The mission, August 14, 1945. The date is significant. Unknown to American forces in the Pacific, Japan had already decided to surrender. Emperor Hirohito had recorded his surrender announcement the previous day, but American commanders in the field didn't know this yet. They continued normal operations. USS Saginaw Bay launched a routine strike mission at 0800 hours. The target was Japanese naval facilities at Yokosuka. The strike package included 6 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers, 4 F-6F Hellcat fighters for escort, and 1 special payload. Lieutenant Commander George Speidel, commanding the torpedo bomber squadron, flew the lead Avenger carrying the toilet bomb. His crew consisted of Radioman Aviation Radioman Second Class Robert Miller and turret gunner Aviation Ordnance Man, Third Class William Patterson. The flight to target took 45 minutes. Japanese air opposition by mid-August 1945 was minimal. The once fearsome Combined Fleet Air Arm had been destroyed through years of attrition. American aircraft operated over Japan with near impunity. As the formation approached Tokyo Bay at 0930 hours, Speidel contacted the other aircraft. "Gentlemen," he announced over the radio, "prepare to witness history. I'm delivering the most important payload of my career." The other air crews knew about the toilet bomb. Word had spread throughout the carrier within hours of Cook's completion of the project. Every pilot and crew member wanted to witness the delivery. Some had cameras ready to document the event. Speidel's bombardier, Miller, aligned the release point over Tokyo Bay near visible Japanese naval vessels. At an altitude of 3,000 feet and speed of 180 knots, he called release when the target entered his crosshairs. The toilet bomb separated cleanly from the aircraft. The improvised fin assembly provided surprising stability. The payload tumbled slightly during initial descent, but stabilized within 200 feet. It fell for approximately 9 seconds before impacting the water. The explosion, of course, was just water displaced by a ceramic object hitting at terminal velocity. But from the air, the splash looked spectacular. Photography officer Lieutenant James Harmon captured multiple images from a trailing Avenger, documentation that would later circulate throughout the Pacific Fleet. The message painted on the toilet was clearly visible in photographs taken immediately after release, from the captain and crew of the USS Saginaw Bay to the officers and gentlemen of the Japanese fleet. Below that, in smaller letters, "We've been holding this for you since Pearl Harbor. The formation completed its mission, dropped actual ordnance on assigned targets, and returned to USS Saginaw Bay. All aircraft recovered safely. The mission was logged as successful." Commander Ellis made no special notation of the toilet bomb in official reports, simply noting, "All ordnance delivered as planned." But photographs and word of mouth spread the story throughout the Pacific Fleet within days. Within 2 weeks, every carrier group knew about the toilet bomb. Within a month, the story had reached stateside newspapers. If you're enjoying this incredible story of military humor and psychological warfare, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We bring you the most fascinating and detailed World War II stories every week. Now let's see how the Germans reacted to this ultimate humiliation. The German reaction. Obersergeant Klaus Richter's observation of the toilet bomb on August 14, 1945, provided one of the few documented German reactions to Allied psychological warfare tactics. His report, filed with the German military mission in Japan and captured by Soviet forces in September 1945, reveals the profound psychological impact. Observed American aircraft drop non-standard object into Tokyo Bay vicinity of Japanese naval vessels, Richter wrote. Object identified as bathroom fixture, specifically a toilet. Item was painted white with English text, visible from ground observation point. Japanese personnel visibly confused and demoralized by incident. American forces demonstrate such material superiority that they can afford to waste resources on humiliation tactics. Richter's report continued with analysis that German High Command had consistently failed to grasp throughout the war. This incident, while seemingly trivial, demonstrates fundamental American strategic approach. They possess such overwhelming industrial and logistical capacity that they can afford actions with no direct military value. They manufacture, transport, and deploy items purely for psychological effect. This capability exceeds anything German forces achieved even at peak strength. The report was forwarded to Berlin but arrived after Germany's surrender. It remained in files until Soviet occupation forces captured German military archives in late 1945. But Richter's observation in Japan was far from the first time German forces encountered Allied psychological warfare through unconventional weapons. The toilet bomb represented the culmination of years of escalating psychological operations that had consistently caught German forces off guard. In 1943, RAF Bomber Command crews began dropping propaganda leaflets wrapped around actual coal. The coal bombs were designed to look like legitimate fuel, but contained explosives triggered by heat. German workers, finding what appeared to be misplaced coal, would shovel it into furnaces. The resulting explosions killed workers and destroyed equipment. But more damaging than the actual explosions was the psychological effect. German workers became paranoid about coal supplies. Productivity dropped as workers carefully inspected every piece of coal before use. The fear of sabotaged coal exceeded the actual damage caused. Luftwaffe intelligence officers analyzing the coal bomb campaign wrote in October 1943, "Enemy demonstrates capacity to waste explosives on psychological operations. They manufacture thousands of fake coal pieces for minimal physical damage. This suggests resource availability we cannot match." In 1944, American forces in Italy began using loudspeakers to broadcast music, news, and propaganda to German positions. But mixed with the propaganda were recordings of German soldiers captured earlier in the war, reading letters from home, describing good treatment as prisoners, and encouraging surrender. German commanders attempted to counter this by moving positions away from loudspeaker range, but American forces simply moved the speakers closer. When German artillery targeted the speakers, Americans replaced them within hours. The endless stream of replacement equipment demoralized German soldiers more than the propaganda content itself. A German after-action report from Monte Cassino in March 1944 stated, Americans destroyed 3 loudspeaker positions with direct artillery fire. Within 6 hours, Americans had installed 4 replacement speakers. This immediate replacement of non-critical equipment demonstrates logistical capacity that makes our supply situation appear primitive by comparison. By 1945, German forces had encountered countless examples of Allied psychological warfare backed by seemingly unlimited resources. They had seen American aircraft drop propaganda leaflets in such quantities that they covered entire fields. They had watched American loudspeakers replaced faster than they could be destroyed. They had witnessed American forces waste ammunition on demonstrations rather than combat. The toilet bomb represented the apotheosis of this trend. It wasn't enough for America to defeat Japan with conventional weapons. They needed to demonstrate that they could afford to drop bathroom fixtures as gestures of contempt. German military analysts attempting to understand Allied psychology in late 1944 and early 1945 consistently returned to one conclusion. American military culture treated war as industrial problem rather than struggle of national wills. They didn't seek glorious victory. They sought efficient processing of enemies using overwhelming material superiority. This analysis was correct but incomplete. American forces did possess industrial superiority, but the willingness to use that superiority for psychological operations rather than just maximizing destruction showed sophisticated understanding of warfare's mental dimension. The industrial advantage. The toilet bomb's significance extended beyond its use as a psychological weapon. It represented American industrial and logistical capabilities that German forces never matched. Consider the chain of events required to deliver a toilet bomb to Tokyo Bay in August 1945. First, the toilet itself. Standard American naval bathroom fixtures were manufactured by companies like Kohler, American Standard, and Crane. These companies operated massive factories, producing thousands of units weekly. During the war, they supplied fixtures for thousands of naval vessels, military bases, and government facilities. The toilet dropped on Japan was surplus equipment, replaced during routine maintenance. The fact that American forces could afford routine replacement of bathroom fixtures on warships operating 5,000 miles from home ports demonstrated logistical capacity beyond German comprehension. German submarine crews, by contrast, often operated with broken or inadequate sanitation facilities for entire patrols. German surface vessels delayed maintenance for years due to lack of parts and dry dock availability. The idea of routinely replacing bathroom fixtures as preventive maintenance was inconceivable. Second, the transportation. The replacement toilet arrived at USS Saginaw Bay through a supply chain that spanned the Pacific. It was manufactured in the United States, transported by truck to a port facility, loaded onto a cargo vessel, shipped to forward supply bases in the Philippines or Marianas, transferred to a fleet oiler or supply vessel, and finally delivered to the carrier at sea. This journey of 7,000 miles involved multiple transfers, temporary storage at several locations, and coordination among dozens of supply personnel. It occurred while simultaneously delivering ammunition, fuel, spare parts, food, medicine, and thousands of other items to hundreds of vessels operating across the Pacific. German logistics, by comparison, struggled to supply forces operating a few hundred miles from German borders. In 1944 and 1945, German armies were starving, freezing, and running out of ammunition while operating in occupied France and Poland. The idea of maintaining complex supply chains across oceans for 5 years was beyond their capability. Third, the air power. Delivering the toilet required an aircraft carrier, aircraft-trained crew, fuel, and air superiority over the target area. By August 1945, American forces operated 15 fleet carriers and over 70 escort carriers in the Pacific. These vessels deployed approximately 1,500 combat aircraft. The mission that delivered the toilet bomb included 6 torpedo bombers and 4 fighters. These 10 aircraft represented a tiny fraction of American air power that day. Hundreds of other American aircraft were simultaneously attacking targets across Japan and the Pacific. The Luftwaffe, by comparison, had ceased meaningful operations by April 1945. Lack of fuel, trained pilots, and serviceable aircraft grounded the once mighty German Air Force. The idea of mounting an offensive operation to deliver a joke was inconceivable. Fourth, the documentation. The toilet bomb mission was photographed, discussed over radio, written about in reports, and eventually covered in newspapers. This open discussion of a combat mission, even a humorous one, demonstrated information freedom that totalitarian regimes couldn't match. German military operations were shrouded in secrecy. Even successful operations often went unreported to prevent enemy intelligence gathering. The idea of publicizing a mission whose primary purpose was humor would have seemed criminally irresponsible to German commanders. These 4 elements, combined, demonstrated systematic advantages that determined the war's outcome. American forces possessed industrial capacity to manufacture anything needed in vast quantities. They possessed logistical capability to deliver those items anywhere in the world. They possessed military power to operate with impunity over enemy territory. They possessed cultural confidence to engage in psychological operations openly. German forces, by mid-1945, possessed none of these advantages. They were losing the industrial war, the logistical war, the military war, and the psychological war simultaneously. The toilet bomb crystallized these disparities in a single absurd image. A bathroom fixture, manufactured in America, transported across the Pacific, dropped from an American carrier aircraft onto Japanese naval vessels while German observers watched helplessly. The propaganda victory. The toilet bomb achieved something that thousands of tons of conventional bombs couldn't accomplish. It became a symbol that communicated American dominance in ways that statistics and battle reports never could. Photographs of the toilet bomb circulated throughout the Pacific Fleet within days of the mission. Sailors and airmen who had been fighting for years, who had seen friends die, who faced the prospect of invading Japan itself, found the images hilarious and uplifting. Here was proof that American forces retained humor and confidence even after years of brutal warfare. The photographs reached American newspapers in early September 1945 after Japan's surrender. Stars and Stripes ran the story under the headline, "Toilet Bomb Dropped on Japan, Navy's Last Word." The article described the mission in detail, including the painted message and the crew's reactions. Stateside newspapers picked up the story: the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Chicago Tribune, and hundreds of smaller papers ran variations of the article. The tone was universally celebratory. Here was the perfect symbol of American victory: overwhelming force mixed with irreverent humor. But the story resonated beyond simple comedy. It represented American cultural approach to warfare that distinguished Allied forces from Axis powers. German and Japanese military cultures emphasized duty, sacrifice, honor, and seriousness. Their propaganda portrayed war as existential struggle requiring total commitment and grim determination. Humor, particularly humor at the expense of the enemy, was considered undignified. American military culture, by contrast, emphasized practical effectiveness and psychological resilience. If humor helped maintain morale, then humor was a legitimate military tool. If mocking enemies demoralized them while encouraging friendly forces, then mockery served tactical purposes. This cultural difference had profound strategic implications. German and Japanese forces fought with fanatical determination, but increasingly brittle morale. As defeats mounted, the lack of psychological flexibility led to collapse. German soldiers, in the war's final months, often surrendered en masse when resistance became clearly futile. Japanese soldiers fought to the death or committed suicide rather than face the dishonor of surrender. American forces, by contrast, maintained psychological flexibility through humor and pragmatism. They could acknowledge difficulties, joke about hardships, and maintain effectiveness despite setbacks. The ability to laugh at themselves and mock enemies simultaneously demonstrated psychological resilience that totalitarian cultures couldn't replicate. The toilet bomb exemplified this psychological advantage. Only a military culture that could maintain humor while fighting a total war would conceive such an operation. Only a military force confident of victory would waste resources on gestures, rather than maximizing destructive efficiency. German intelligence officers analyzing Allied psychological warfare tactics consistently misunderstood this cultural dimension. They interpreted American humor as lack of seriousness or military discipline. They believed American soldiers, raised in soft democratic society, would break under pressure. Instead, American psychological flexibility proved more durable than German or Japanese rigidity. American forces could adapt, improvise, and maintain morale under conditions that shattered enemy cohesion. Before we explore the lasting impact of this story, I want to remind you to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying these deep dives into fascinating World War II history. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our weekly stories. Now let's see how this toilet bomb became a legend, the legacy of absurd warfare. The toilet bomb mission achieved legendary status within military culture. It represented the perfect intersection of irreverence, capability, and psychological insight. Veteran organizations after the war consistently ranked the toilet bomb story among the most memorable non-combat incidents of World War II. Veterans who had fought in major battles, who had survived horrific combat, who had witnessed countless dramatic events, nevertheless remembered and retold the toilet bomb story with special affection. The reason was simple. It encapsulated what many veterans felt about their service. They had done difficult, dangerous, traumatic work, but they had maintained humanity and humor throughout. The toilet bomb proved that even in total war, there was room for absurdity. Military historians analyzing psychological operations have consistently cited the toilet bomb as an exemplary case study. It demonstrated principles that remain relevant in modern warfare. Psychological impact can exceed physical destruction. Enemy morale is legitimate target. Humor can be weaponized, and cultural confidence multiplies combat effectiveness. But the toilet bomb also revealed something about American character that enemies consistently failed to understand. Americans approached problems pragmatically rather than ideologically. They weren't fighting for abstract concepts of racial purity or imperial destiny. They were solving the problem of Axis aggression using whatever tools worked, including humor. This pragmatic approach mystified German and Japanese leaders who viewed war through ideological frameworks. How could Americans be simultaneously irreverent and effective? How could they joke about war while executing it with devastating efficiency? The cognitive dissonance prevented Axis powers from accurately assessing American capabilities until far too late. The toilet bomb also demonstrated American cultural tendency toward innovation within systems. Commander Ellis didn't request permission to drop a toilet on Japan. He submitted paperwork requesting permission to test non-standard ordnance delivery. Aviation Ordnance Man Cook didn't wait for official engineering specifications. He modified a bathroom fixture using standard bomb components and his own expertise. This decentralized innovation, this ability of individual Americans to solve problems creatively within broad mission parameters, gave American forces adaptive advantages that centralized Axis command structures couldn't match. German and Japanese forces waited for orders from higher authority. American forces identified opportunities and executed them using available resources. The toilet bomb mission, while absurd, exemplified this cultural trait. Nobody ordered Ellis to humiliate Japanese forces with bathroom fixtures. He identified an opportunity to achieve psychological effects, developed a plan using available resources, and executed it within his operational authority. Modern military special operations forces consciously cultivate this adaptive culture. Mission-type orders that define objectives while leaving execution to subordinate commanders trace lineage to World War II experiences where individual initiative consistently outperformed rigid planning. The statistical reality. While the toilet bomb achieved legendary status, it's important to understand the quantitative context of Allied aerial operations in 1945. In August 1945, American forces dropped approximately 42,000 tons of bombs on Japanese targets. The toilet bomb weighed 73 pounds, or 0.0365 tons. It represented 0.0000086% of tonnage dropped that month. Yet this infinitesimal fraction of destructive power generated more discussion, more photographs, and more propaganda value than most conventional bombing missions. This disparity between physical effect and psychological impact demonstrates warfare's mental dimension. German military analysts throughout the war struggled with this concept. They calculated bombing effectiveness based on tons dropped, structures destroyed, casualties inflicted. They built elaborate mathematical models predicting when enemy morale would collapse based on physical destruction. These models consistently failed because they ignored psychological factors that couldn't be quantified. They couldn't calculate the morale impact of American soldiers laughing as they prepared a toilet bomb. They couldn't measure the demoralizing effect on Japanese personnel who witnessed bathroom fixtures falling from the sky. American forces, by contrast, understood that warfare was partly mathematical but partly psychological. You achieved victory through destroying enemy capability to resist, while simultaneously destroying enemy will to resist. Physical destruction addressed capability. Psychological operations addressed will. The toilet bomb contributed nothing to destroying Japanese capability, but it contributed significantly to destroying Japanese will. It demonstrated American contempt for Japanese threats. It showed American confidence in victory. It proved American forces retained humor despite years of combat. All of these psychological effects undermined Japanese determination. Similar dynamics appeared throughout the air war over Germany. British and American strategic bombing achieved limited physical success in 1943 and 1944. German production actually increased during this period despite heavy bombing. Traditional analysis suggested bombing had failed, but psychological analysis revealed different results. German civilian morale deteriorated significantly. Workers became exhausted from air raids, reducing productivity despite increased industrial capacity. German leadership devoted massive resources to air defense, resources unavailable for offensive operations. The bombing campaign achieved strategic effects through psychological mechanisms rather than just physical destruction. The toilet bomb represented this psychological dimension in miniature. Zero physical effect, significant psychological impact. The perfect demonstration that warfare is ultimately about breaking enemy will, rather than just destroying enemy capability. The human element. Behind the statistics and analysis were human beings who found meaning in absurdity during humanity's most destructive conflict. Commander William Ellis, who conceived the toilet bomb operation, survived the war and retired from the Navy in 1955 as a captain. In later interviews, he consistently emphasized the morale effect on his own crew rather than enemy demoralization. My men had been fighting for years, Ellis explained in a 1978 interview. They were exhausted, traumatized, facing the prospect of invading Japan itself. The toilet bomb gave them something to laugh about. It reminded them that we hadn't lost our humanity despite everything we'd seen and done. Aviation ordnance man James Cook, who engineered the toilet bomb, parlayed his improvisational skills into a successful post-war career as a mechanical engineer. He kept photographs of the toilet bomb in his office throughout his life, showing them to visitors who asked about his war service. People expected war stories to be about death and destruction, Cook later recalled. The toilet bomb was something different. It showed that even in the worst circumstances, humans could find humor. That's worth remembering. Lieutenant Commander George Speidel, who flew the mission, never spoke publicly about it until the 1980s. When finally interviewed, he emphasized the mission's seriousness despite its absurd payload. "We treated that toilet like we treated every other bomb," Speidel explained. "We armed it properly, calculated the release point carefully, documented the mission professionally. The fact that it was a toilet didn't make us any less professional about delivery. That was the point. We could do anything, even absurd things, with complete professionalism." The Japanese naval personnel who witnessed the toilet bomb landing near their vessels left no recorded reactions, but the incident appeared in several Japanese post-war memoirs as an example of American psychological warfare's effectiveness. One Japanese officer wrote in 1952, "We understood that American forces possessed material superiority, but seeing them drop bathroom fixtures demonstrated superiority so complete that they could waste effort on humiliation. It was more demoralizing than conventional bombing." Obersergeant Klaus Richter, the German observer in Japan, returned to Germany after the war and lived quietly until his death in 1973. His report on the toilet bomb was discovered in Soviet archives in 1991 after the Cold War ended. It provided rare German perspective on Allied psychological operations. In his report, Richter concluded, "The Americans won the war not through better soldiers or superior tactics, though they had both. They won through such overwhelming material and psychological superiority that they could afford gestures that had no military value. The toilet bomb demonstrated this superiority more effectively than any battle report." The broader context of military humor. The toilet bomb wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a broader tradition of military humor that sustained morale during extended combat. Throughout World War II, Allied forces engaged in countless humorous activities that served psychological purposes. Aircraft nose art featured cartoons, pin-up girls, and irreverent slogans. Bomb crews wrote messages on their weapons. Soldiers painted vehicles with humorous names. Units developed mascots, inside jokes, and traditions that outsiders couldn't understand. This humor wasn't disrespect for the war's seriousness. It was a coping mechanism that allowed soldiers to maintain sanity during insanity. The alternative was psychological breakdown under pressure that destroyed many combatants who couldn't find release through humor. German military culture discouraged such levity. Humor at the expense of enemies was considered unsoldierly. Making light of serious situations violated military discipline. This cultural rigidity contributed to psychological brittleness that became apparent as German forces faced repeated defeats. Japanese military culture was even more rigid. The Bushido Code emphasized dignity, honor, and seriousness in all military matters. Humor at enemy expense was dishonorable. Making jokes during wartime was disrespectful to those who had died. This cultural difference gave Allied forces subtle advantage. They could acknowledge difficulties while maintaining morale through humor. Axis forces had to maintain facade of confidence even as situations became hopeless, creating cognitive dissonance that accelerated psychological collapse. The toilet bomb represented this cultural advantage in its purest form. Only Allied forces would conceive such an operation. Only Allied military culture would approve it. Only Allied industrial capacity could execute it. The combination of cultural flexibility and material superiority proved unbeatable. Conclusion: the power of absurdity. The toilet bomb dropped on Tokyo Bay on August 14, 1945, weighed 73 pounds, cost approximately $12 in materials and labor, and inflicted zero military damage. By any traditional metric of military effectiveness, it was worthless. Yet it achieved effects that far exceeded its physical properties. It boosted Allied morale by demonstrating that American forces retained humor and confidence after years of combat. It demoralized Axis forces by demonstrating American superiority so complete that resources could be wasted on gestures. It became a propaganda symbol, more powerful than battle reports or casualty statistics. Most importantly, it revealed fundamental truths about warfare that transcended specific battles or campaigns. Warfare is psychological struggle as much as physical combat. Enemy will matters as much as enemy capability. Humor can be weaponized effectively. Cultural confidence multiplies military power. German forces never understood these principles. They approached war as mathematical problem of force ratios, production statistics, and territorial control. They built elaborate plans based on quantifiable factors while ignoring psychological dimensions they couldn't measure. American forces, by contrast, understood that war was partly science but also partly art. The toilet bomb represented the artistic dimension. It couldn't be calculated, couldn't be quantified, couldn't be predicted through mathematical models, but it worked. The German observers who watched the toilet bomb fall on Tokyo Bay witnessed more than an absurd gesture. They witnessed the culmination of 5 years of American industrial, military, and psychological dominance. They witnessed a demonstration of superiority so complete that the victors could afford to mock the defeated. Commander Ellis's toilet bomb achieved what conventional weapons sometimes couldn't. It communicated American victory in a language that transcended statistics and battle reports. It said, "We are so powerful that we can waste resources on jokes. We are so confident that we can laugh at our enemies. We are so superior that we can humiliate you with bathroom fixtures." The message was received. Japan surrendered the next day. Whether the toilet bomb contributed to that decision is unknowable. But it certainly didn't hurt. The legacy endures. Military historians study the toilet bomb as an example of innovative psychological operations. Veterans remember it with affection as evidence they maintained humanity during inhumanity. The photographs circulate on internet forums where people marvel at the audacity. The toilet bomb reminds us that sometimes the most effective weapons aren't the most destructive. Sometimes a bathroom fixture dropped from an aircraft achieves more than 1,000 tons of high explosives. Sometimes absurdity communicates truth more effectively than formal reports. They mocked the toilet bomb idea when Commander Ellis first proposed it. They called it wasteful, undignified, pointless. Then it humiliated the German observers, demoralized Japanese defenders, boosted Allied morale, and became a legend. The toilet bomb worked. Democracy worked. Humor worked. America won. And somewhere in the depths of Tokyo Bay, there lies a porcelain testament to the power of absurdity, the effectiveness of psychological warfare, and the unbeatable combination of industrial might and irreverent humor that characterized American victory in World War II. The Germans laughed at the idea until they watched it fall. Then they stopped laughing. Then they understood. Then they knew the war was truly, irrevocably, completely lost. A bathroom fixture dropped from the sky ended. German illusions more effectively than any conventional weapon. That's the power of the toilet bomb. That's the lesson of World War II. That's why America won.